Oh, yeah. Down and dirty here on ESPN 792.1 FM. You guys are all wondering, wait a minute, that's not Scott Mitchell. That's right. His producer, Martin Kelly, is filled in for today, as this show is on ESPN 792.1 FM. Thank you so much for everyone listening in. Again, I'm Martin Kelly, filling in for the first time for Scott Mitchell. Scott is on vacation. He'll be back next week. After he's on vacation, he's visiting Europe right now. He's probably in France right now, I would assume. But anyway, he'll be back next week, Monday. And if you're just tuning in for the first time, thank you very much for listening in. If you missed this podcast, we'll podcast this after the show. It'll be on Spreaker or wherever you get your podcast. Listen to it, The Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell, as we do 10 to 11 here on ESPN 792.1 FM. And then we do another hour on ESPN The Fan from 1 to 2. We can catch both of those shows on any podcast page you get there. Let's start this show off with some hot headlines, okay? And I want to bring in I got my producer today, Zach, who's going to be helping me all day today. Zach, how are you, man? How was your weekend? Did you have fun? Did you do anything fun?
Oh, I did so much fun stuff. Saturday, hung out with the family. My brother's back in town, so I got to spend some time with him. He goes to college in Western Washington, so I got to spend some time with him. And then yesterday, I went to some family pool time at a friend's house. Our families are pretty close. They used to be our old neighbors. So we went down to Tooele and did that. But other than that, just watch some soccer, watch some NHL draft, some NBA draft. It was a pretty good weekend.
I agree with you on that one. Obviously, you're not going to ask me what I did over the weekend, but I'm just going to spoil it anyway.
What did you do? What did you do?
Trying to get the conversations going here. I was at X Games. I was doing some security work, so I got to watch some of the X Games that was here in Salt Lake City. It was the 30th anniversary for X Games, and it was fun. I watched some half-pipe action. I watched some BMX action. I watched some MotoGP action. It was pretty fun. I got to listen to Sublime on Saturday night, play a couple songs I knew back in the early 2000s. It was kind of nice to catch up on some Pro Skater 2 old music from back in the day, just a little bit of enjoyment there. But, man, it was a good weekend to see that. Plus, yesterday I was helping out my dad. We were working on our cars and trucks and cleaning them up a little bit. So spent some time in the sun yesterday. Got a little tan, got a little burnt. I walked in a little bit more of what I usually look like. But nonetheless, let's jump into it real quick here, guys. Let's get into the hot headlines. And we're going to start off with the Utah sports here. We're going to talk about the Jazz first. Obviously, the stories that are going on around about with the Utah Jazz is the fact that Ace Bailey, the 5th overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft, was not happy he got picked by the Utah Jazz. That's what the word is. That's how the rumors are all being spread around. He did not want to go to Utah. He either wanted to go to Washington or to Brooklyn. He wanted to stay on the East Coast. He went to Rutgers. You know what? I don't hate on that. You want to stay close to home. You want to have that family atmosphere with you while you're playing NBA. I totally get that. But unfortunately, he's picked by the Utah Jazz. He doesn't get on the plane right away. He decides to wait a couple days. He comes in on Saturday. We got him talking about his process on being drafted by the Utah Jazz. Zach, whenever you have that ready, let's play that and let's listen.
That you considered not coming to Utah?
No, not at all. I mean, just blessed to be in this position I am. Not a lot of people can sit in these chairs and have great teammates as I got on that came on with me, so I'm just blessed to be here.
What's been your first 24 hours like here in Salt Lake? And did you come right to the gym off the plane?
Yeah, for sure I did. I was excited to see what the practice facility was like. It's a great scenery. As soon as I got off the plane, I didn't think the mountains was real. I mean, it was so beautiful. It was just seeing that scenery, just being in that position, just getting off that plane, just meeting the coaches. It was just all great.
All right. So that's him answering a couple questions at the presser with the other two players that the Utah drafted includes Walter Clayton Jr. out of Florida, and I do not know the second rounder off the top of my head. Zach, if you know that one, you can say it into my ear and help me out there. But the point is, Ace Bailey shows up. They have the press conference in front of all the media and staff. They get him to say the right things. And I believe him when he says that he got off the plane, he wanted to check out the facilities, he wants to be here in Utah. The kid is really good. If you look at his numbers from Rutgers, he averaged 17 points and 6 rebounds. He was just exactly what they needed there Also with his teammate Dylan Harper, they put up some really solid numbers at Rutgers. They weren't the best Big Ten team, but they put up some solid numbers individually as both of those players. And honestly, I buy, again, what he says, that he wants to be here in Utah. But I also think on the other side of that, I'm trying to catch up here. On the other side of that one, to me, he did a little bit of own damage against himself. And what I mean by that is not in a bad way, but not getting on the plane right away to come to Utah after he got drafted. This notion that, he didn't want to be in Utah. There was also a bunch of rumors thrown out he was going to retire, which is not true at all. That wasn't going to happen whatsoever. And the fact that everybody got ahead of this and took exactly what happened and thought to themselves, hey, he doesn't want to be in Utah. He wanted to be on the East Coast. He didn't want to get drafted by any of the top 5 teams. Dallas was in there. Philadelphia was in there. San Antonio was in the top 5. I mean, if you wanted to go to the East Coast, the 76ers was the pick right there. If they were going to take him and they were going to think of any idea, that would have been the pick he probably would have taken in the top 5 and said, okay, I'm on the East Coast. I can live in Philly and play for the 76ers. But also, he's now somewhat of a person in the Utah Jazz fans' eyes that say, well, do you really want to be here? Like, the player they also got in the first round, Walter Clayton Jr., is a solid pick for the Jazz. That kid is a master at creating plays. I still remember the play that he made in the March Madness tournament, grabbing the rebound, and his first thought wasn't to put it right back up. It was to dribble outside, get outside the three-point line, and then shoot a 3 right away. That was impressive to me by Walter Clayton Jr., what he did in the March Madness tournament. That tells me everything about a type of player like that where he's going to work hard, get the rebound, and find another play. He didn't even hesitate. He didn't even think twice about it. He just ran to the three-point line, got behind it, shot the 3, and boom, it went down. We didn't see Bailey in the March Madness tournament. Rutgers did not make it. All right, they struggled all season. So we only saw Bailey of what we saw, A, through the regular season, and B, through the Big Ten tournament, which was still impressive. And it's the reason why the Jazz took him at 5th overall. Now, another notion is going to be, well, if Clayton Jr. can get on the plane right away and come to Utah, how come you couldn't do it? That is going to be the narrative around Ace Bailey for a minute. That's going to go away as soon as he steps on the court and has a phenomenal night. If he has 20 points and 10 rebounds in one night, those notions of him playing here are going to go right away. And the new notions of what he wants to do after that are going to be created after that. Zach, you're a Jazz fan, so let me bring you in here on this one. Your overall thoughts of, Ace Bailey saying he doesn't even want to be here. He didn't even want to get picked by the Jazz. What are your thoughts on it, real quick?
Yeah, so I talked about this with Bryce Larson, who you've heard on the drive with Porter, and he also is the host of Bryson Bianucci on our sister station, The Fan. We were both kind of skeptical about Ace Bailey before the draft happened. And then now we're seeing Ace Bailey get drafted. I'm like, okay, well, he doesn't want to be here, right? Because you skipped workouts, you skip like practices with teams, skipping workouts with the teams that want to work you out and see what you can do, And then obviously the misrepresentation with Ace Bailey. I don't know if you saw this article by Sarah Todd of Deseret News. If you didn't, I'll text it to you or send it to you. But he was pretty misrepresented, in my opinion, by his agent. And James talked about this last week, who was hosting OC's show, Sean O'Connell's show. And he just seems so excited. He's just happy that he's getting the opportunity to play for a franchise. It's still rebuild mode for the Jazz, trading Gobert, Donovan, Mike Conley, all those guys, and getting a new coach with Will Hardy. But I think this is going to work out great, and adding with the addition of Walter Clayton Jr. is going to be great. It's going to be interesting how the Jazz are going to perform this year with everybody being healthy and everything.
I'm glad you brought up Donovan Mitchell, because here's another point that I put in our rundown to talk about to give Ace Bailey another perspective. Listen, I am not from Utah. I am from Chicago, Illinois, born and raised, 20 years in the city. I moved here to Utah in January of 2018, started my college life down in Dixie State, also Utah Tech, and spent a majority of time down in Southern Utah and hung out with all the Southern Utah Jazz fans, him telling me all about the Pete Maravich days and the Karl Malone days, John Stockton. Of course, when I tell people I'm from Chicago, I got all the, stuff about he pushed off on Russell. We should have won the 98 finals. The 98 finals was ours. That was a push-off. That was a push-off. And agree to disagree, all right? Agree to disagree. I was only 2 years old when they won the championship, so as much as I remember is very little to what everybody else remembers. But why I bring that up is, Ace, if you're going to listen, just listen for a minute, okay? Utah is a really great place to live. I love living here in Utah. It is phenomenal. And it's just not just the scenery, not just the Wasatch Mountains that are all over the place, not just the national parks, but it's a state that you do not need to be in a hurry, okay? Seriously, people in the state are not in a hurry at all, man. And you can focus on playing basketball. There isn't too many distractions out here. Not like in Brooklyn, not like in Philly, not like in Washington, where you can go out and party, where you can go out to the casinos, where you can do all the clubbing. Bro, if you want to be a true ball player, you want to build your NBA brand, building it out here is one of the most perfect places you can do it, man. Let's talk about players like Pete Maravich, who was someone who grew up in New Orleans, who played for the New Orleans Jazz before it got moved here, who grew into the city, who benefited from it and became basically Mr. Utah Jazz as soon as the team moved here. Karl Malone, Devin Williams, Carlos Boozer decided to come here via free agency, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. There's been plenty of players who have put in the work to be an NBA-type level player, and they've embraced the Utah Jazz. And there's no doubt about that whatsoever, especially with the recent players, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell. They embrace Utah. They love the fact that they got the 60-win season, the number one seed in the Western Conference. They put up some legitimately fun NBA playoff fights. So, yes, Ace has a point. If he said this within his own inner circle, going to the Jazz is not the right move at the moment. Obviously, a 15-win team picking fifth is not where you want to land. You want to land with like the Thunder or with the Pacers or with the Lakers or with the Celtics, teams that are in a position to win, right? Teams that are going to play for the playoffs and are going to compete for a championship right off the bat. But also, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You have to look at it as you have an opportunity to build actual, legitimately a competitive team in Utah. It doesn't have to be championship level. Jazz fans will take a 24-25 win season to begin with. Give them some type of actual belief, and the Jazz fans will get behind you. I mean, the last few years have just been rough. It is no other way to put it. It's just been staggering to watch the Jazz go from a legitimately contending team to have to be forced to play in the bubble. And it's just the way it goes. So that is how it is. But, also, let's talk about this. Utah and its subs. I mentioned that I'm a person from outside the city, and I've grown with the city of Salt Lake over the last couple of years, that I've lived here. Bro, Ace, if you want to get those nightlife type styles, bro, go to State Street. Go to State Street by the library. There are bars all over the place. People are hanging out everywhere, man. It is not a quiet night on State Street by the library. There are clubs. There's bars. There's people hanging out until 2, 3 in the morning. We got that here, dude. Concert venues. Come on. Who hasn't been to USANA or Granary Live or the amphitheater and not had a good concert? Zach, am I wrong about that?
No, you're not wrong.
At Granary Live, I saw, who did I see? What's the band that does Vacation? Dirty Heads. I saw Dirty Heads in concert. I saw Sean Kingston in concert. At USANA, I saw Fall Out Boys. I saw Drake and Snoop Dogg. Like, bro, everybody comes to Utah. Everybody has fun in Salt Lake City. Joyner Lucas, one of my favorite people. Eminem has been to Salt Lake City, Utah. Dude, Salt Lake City, Utah is fun. X Games was just here. Like, that's big there, Zach.
Yeah, it's big. I didn't realize X Games was here until I'm like, oh, it's on, and it says X Games Salt Lake City. I'm like, oh yeah, they're here. Yeah. But no, I agree with you. Like even the Delta Center, even Rice Cycle Stadium. Like I went to Post Malone in April at Rice Cycle Stadium. That was such a great concert, by the way. Just there's so much in Utah, in Salt Lake City, especially downtown Salt Lake City, that you can do. Like there's Gracie's across the street from us. That's like a club and and a place to eat.
Squatters. I mean,
Squatters,
absolutely.
Settlebello's great. Red Rock. There's everything.
We work with Ruth Chris right below us, Christopher's right across the street. Some legitimately good restaurants, man. Some legitimately good fun type places here in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm telling you, Ace, you are gonna have some fun. But bro, this is the best place for you to grow up as an NBA player. You're 18 years old. I get it. You don't want to be detached from your family. That took me a while, Zach. I'm not even going to lie about that. That took me a while to be detached from the big city that I lived in to come to small town of St. George, Utah, in Utah, and live that life. I mean, I didn't hear more than 5 cars drive past my apartment when I was first living in St. George. Dude, I used to live on a block. You could hear a car and a bus go by every 10 minutes. There was not a day I did not hear a city transit bus stop and give someone a chance to get off the bus at 10, 11, noon, I mean, at midnight, at 1 a.m.
NBA players have done is support our local teams. Utah, the Utes, the Cougars, Utah Valley, everything.
Yeah.
There's a chance that you go to those games and you're like, oh, yeah, I love it here. And, like, the mountains, dude. Like, you get such a great view from Smith Ballpark and the new ballpark and Daybreak for the Bees. Just everything. It's a beautiful state.
I love going to Little Cottonwood as many times as I can on the trails. They're just so much fun. There's so much fun to explore. I'm telling Ace Bailey, if you're listening to this, you're gonna have fun in Utah. I promise you that. It is guaranteed you're gonna have fun out here. All right, let's talk about another Utah team here. Let's talk about the Utah Mammoth. Okay. They had the 4th overall pick in the NHL draft, and they did not trade down. There was rumors they're going to trade down. They're going to get a couple more first-round picks. They're going to probably pick around 11, 12, 13, maybe inside the top 20. They did not. Zach, whenever you have that ready, let's listen to pro golfer Tony Finau give us the pick on who's going to be part of the Utah Mammoth.
With the 4th overall selection in the 2025 NHL draft, the Utah Mammoth are proud to select from the Moncton Wildcats, Caleb Deone.
Heard it right there. Tony Finau giving the pick. Caleb Denoyes. Sorry about that. Caleb Denoyes. Everybody practice that. Caleb Denoyes. That is his name. Caleb, again, coming from the ECHL. From one of the minor leagues in NHL hockey, the 4th overall pick. He is a center. He's going to be sliding down the ice in the middle of it. He's going to be passing it off to his teammates. He's going to be sniping it into the back of the net. And the reason why I bring this up is this is a very smart pick by the Utah Mammoth. Okay, the Utah Mammoth are a fresh team in Utah, obviously going through the 1-year transition of being called the Utah Hockey Club, going through what the Washington football team did there, which I think was smart by them. Give themselves a full year to get their whole entire branding situation together, get their ideas together. Let's see what happens with that going forward. Utah Mammoth, Zach, I don't know if you saw the pick. I don't know if you watched it. That jersey was slick, bro. I'm going to buy myself a home jersey.
Yeah.
I hope they come out with like some like blue, grayish jersey maybe down the road as an alternate. But that black jersey with that Mammoth logo on the front, that was very slick.
Yeah, so I was working my other job when the draft was going on, but they did have it on, and I was able to watch. Obviously, I'm a Sharks fan as well, so I'm going through the rebuilding mode with the Sharks as well, which has been a little painful as a sports fan for the Sharks, but was able to watch that pick and the Utah Mammoth pick, and I was able to see that Mammoth jersey. It's just so clean.
It really is.
And I think a light blue, because they have that blue in the logo, I think they would potentially make a blue jersey. And I know you saw the U with the tusk.
Yep.
So I think that's going to be like that middle part of that jersey.
Also, I hope they steal it from the San Jose Sharks. The gray jerseys the Sharks wore back in the day where they had the green logo in the middle of it and they had the shoulder touches. I hope maybe Utah goes down that route. I would love to see that in a gray jersey. Let's see that. But to overall wrap this one up on the draft with the Utah Mammoth, listen, this is a smart pick by them, okay? 4th overall, he is there. He is going to come up slowly but surely through the ranks. He's going to be a third-line centerman. Right now, they have Clayton Keller and they have Logan Cooley, who are both their top centers on this team. Those are going to be their top guys. But he could be a third-line center. Maybe one day they'll move Logan Cooley to the wing, so that moves him into the second center line position. But Utah right now has some superstars: Dylan Gunther, Logan Cooley, Mikhail Sergachev, Clayton Keller, and they just added Zach JJ Paterka from Buffalo for Kesselring, and unfortunately, we had to give up Josh Doan for that. But that is a smart trade for the Utah Mammoth. They are going to be in a playoff position to begin with next season, people. I'm telling you, buy your tickets to go watch the Utah Mammoth, and obviously they don't pay me to say that, but I've been to a couple games. It was a lot of fun to watch them. Obviously, they're doing reconstruction at the Delta Center, so you can actually see the benches, so you can see the rink a little bit more, which I think is going to be a very nice touch for the Delta Center. That's going to give some more room to add even more seats for the NBA games, so that's even going to create some more obviously business for them as well. It's just a lot of smart moves being made around the Delta Center right now. And again, it's just a smart pick by the Utah Mammoth, okay? This team is going to be a legit team to come with 4 years, okay? Next year, I have them competing for a playoff spot. I think they'll be a borderline bottom wild card team. They'll be competing for the top 4 spots in the Central Division. The Central Division is a hard division to play in to begin with, but considering Chicago is in a rebuild, St. Louis is a borderline wild card team. Nashville had their downfall last year. We know Minnesota is going to be really good. We know that Dallas is going to be really good. Those are the top 2 teams in that division, okay? We know that for sure. But the last 2 spots, those are up for grabs, okay? That is legitimately going to be a 6-team fight for 2 spots to get into the playoffs. So I expect Utah to be in the mix for that, and I expect them to have some deep playoff runs coming up. And adding Caleb Denoyes to this team was very, very smart. All right, let's touch on one more thing. We got to touch on this real quick as I get told we got to go to break. But let's touch on this real quick. We'll talk more about this later down the road in another NFL segment. But Jalen Ramsey is no longer a Miami Dolphin. He is now a Pittsburgh Steeler, going with a teammate, Jono Smith, over to Pittsburgh this morning. But what Pittsburgh had to give up for that, they're sending Minkah Fitzpatrick back to the Dolphins. He gets sent from the Dolphins to the Steelers. Now he goes back to the Dolphins. He got a Drew Holiday experience in the last 24 hours. There's no lie about that one. So what does this mean? Well, simple as this. I said on an over-under segment here on the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell that I said the Pittsburgh Steelers will still go 8-9, and that's the day they added Aaron Rodgers to their team. And I still believe that. Yes, Jalen Ramsey is talented. Yes, Jalen Ramsey will be a lockdown corner on that defense, but that's still not enough. Jono Smith, nice tight end, but no. Even with these aging veterans that Pittsburgh added, DK Metcalf, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Ramsey, still not enough to me in my eyes. Not enough. Right now, your top 2 teams in that division by default is A, the Baltimore Ravens, and still to me, B is the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, I know, I said it. Cincinnati. What are you talking about, Martin? Their defense is completely decimated. Their first round pick hasn't even signed yet. I know that's a fair point, but again, the aging veteran team isn't always projected to be perfect. Just think about it. In the mid-90s, okay, the Houston Rockets tried to do this with Charles Barkley, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Scottie Pippen. That didn't work, okay? Seattle tried it with Patrick Ewing. That didn't work, okay? We've seen veteran teams created in the NFL, and sometimes doesn't work. So we'll talk more about that Jalen Ramsey trade. But on the flip side of a break, we're going to talk about the NBA. LeBron James, is he going to play to a quarter century? Is he going to play for year 25 in the NBA? Plus, what are the Boston Celtics doing? Are they going to go through a rebuild? We'll talk about that much more on the other side of this break right here on the Down and Dirty on ESPN 792.1 FM. Oh, yeah, Mr. Blue Sky. Yep. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, also in that movie, was one of my favorite Guardian of the Galaxy movies. I'll defend that as hard as I can. No one's going to tell me otherwise. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was the best of the 3 movies. That's just how I feel. That's just how I feel. Anyway, welcome back to the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell. Obviously, I am not Scott Mitchell. I am Martin Kelly, filling in for Scott. Scott's on vacation right now with his wife across the pond. They're in France at the moment, enjoying themselves. Scott will be back next Monday. But who's sitting in my producer seat? That's a good question. As I sit in the producer seat all the time, Zach, my buddy, one of our young producers here at Broadway Media, ESPN 792.1 FM, taking the reins over there as he's trying to get himself situated over there. Zach, how you doing, buddy? It's good to have you on the program, man. It's good to do a show with you, man.
Yeah, it's my first time doing this show too. I'm like just kind of jumping in without any training with this show, but no, I'm good. And you can hear me everywhere. I produce a lot of the shows here at Broadway Media, so I'm good. It's the first time doing the show. I'm happy to be doing it with you, Martin. And obviously, I've produced for Scott, but he was covering for Sean on the Sean O'Connell show. But Scott's a great dude. I got to know Scott a little bit. So, yeah, Scott knows what he's doing, and he's a great guy. And, Martin, I think you got a good one producing with him.
Thank you about that one. I appreciate that. Hopefully, everyone enjoys me just filling in for a day, listening to what I have to say, my own opinions on sports as I listen to Scott give his opinions. But let's dive into some NBA talk here. First, let's dive into LeBron James opting into his contract deal with the Los Angeles Lakers for $52.1 million. And everybody is now jumping all over that saying, wait, did LeBron James opt into a contract? He usually opts out and gets a new contract deal and gets some more money so that he can have a guarantee so he doesn't have to go through this contract, types arguments, because we've only seen LeBron go through this twice in his career. Obviously, the decision to go to Miami and then the decision to go to LA. He didn't make a real decision on going back to Cleveland. He just said to Miami, trade me back to Cleveland. I don't want to stay here anymore. After the big three in Miami was done competing for championships for 4 years. But so I was thinking about this as over the weekend, this was all just in the news and it's dived into more this morning. Everybody is touching on, will LeBron James get traded? Will he go to San Antonio or Dallas or back to Cleveland to finish it off there? Will he go to New York? Does he want to stay on the West Coast? Maybe he goes to Golden State. Maybe he goes to this team. You can speculate all that all you want. We're going to wait for the news to see first. But what I want to touch on is the most obvious conversation that goes on with LeBron James. The GOAT conversation. Oh, we got to talk about this again. Why are we talking about this? Well, here's the reason why I'm talking about it. It's simple. Because the argument now that LeBron James can bring to the table that legitimately, even as a Michael Jordan fan, as someone who believes Michael Jordan is the GOAT, I got to give it to LeBron. If he does this, I have to give credit to him for being one of the few people and the only person to ever do this in the NBA history. Is to play 25 years in the league. Yes, I said 25 years. He came into the 2003-2004 season. He could legitimately play until the 2027 and 2028 season to be the only player to play a quarter century in the NBA. That's a legit argument LeBron James can bring to the table and see, look, I did this. Michael didn't do this. That's very true. But then that brings into the conversation, is longevity more important than accolades? Because that is the conversation that continues on with LeBron James versus Michael Jordan. Well, Michael has the 10 scoring titles, the 6 NBA championships, the 6 NBA finals MVPs, the 6 league MVPs. Okay, he has more league MVPs than LeBron. Everybody's still mad about the year Derrick Rose won the MVP over LeBron James. As a Bulls fan, no, I'm not. I won't take that back. Derrick Rose's season was just phenomenal to watch, and I believe he deserved to be MVP. But if you want to say a couple other seasons LeBron James deserved it, be my guest. I'm not going to argue that, considering the 2000s had Paul Pierce, had Kevin Garnett, had Kobe Bryant, had Steve Nash, had Shaquille O'Neal winning MVPs. I can see it. I totally 100% can see it. So what does this really mean for LeBron? What this really means for LeBron is that he has a choice. Okay, right now he's in LA. Right now, they have Luka Doncic on the team. Right now, they have Bronny James Jr. on the team. He could legitimately, figuratively, realistically, as I say figuratively, why would I say that? But the point is, he could wait for Bryce to get drafted by the Lakers too. Why not play with both of your sons? Why not play with both legitimately your two NBA prospect sons and see if you can win a championship with Luka? You got Luka in a trade that nobody saw coming. Nobody woke up that next morning after hearing about Luka Doncic getting traded to the Lakers and believed it for a minute. We all thought NBA Centel on Twitter pulled another one over our heads. We're like, no way he got traded. That's not true at all. He did get traded to the Lakers. He got traded for a bag of chips. And it's so funny to see Anthony Davis then put on a Dallas Mavericks jersey and play with Kyrie Irving. Okay, now, again, if you want to say, well, maybe LeBron James wants to go team up with that veteran team, be my guess, with Jason Kidd and Cooper Flagg, that's a scary four-man team right there. I could see that team competing in the Western Conference Finals. I could see that team competing for an NBA championship. But back to the point I made originally, which is the longevity versus accolades. Michael Jordan has all the accolades, has all the championships, has all the titles, has the NBA Slam Dunk Contest title. He has all of those over LeBron James. But what does LeBron James have? Well, I've played 22 seasons. I put up 40,000 points. I have 10,000 assists. I almost have 10,000 rebounds. I am the person that's breaking down all of the stat records. All of them. They're all mine. They all have LeBron James before anybody else. And I got to give credit to LeBron for that. But I always will still believe accolades is over longevity because LeBron has benefited from the fact that he has had to play in 1, 2, 3, and the championship rounds, first, second, and third rounds with 7 games. Michael didn't do that. Michael only had the best of 5 in the first round and the best of 5 in the second round before you got to the best of 7 in the conference finals and the NBA finals. So if you want to add in accolades and longevity, you got to add into the fact that Michael didn't have the chance at longevity because his seasons were cut short due to the fact that they didn't have enough playoff games. And everyone's going to go, well, he couldn't win in the first round. Michael's got less first-round exits than LeBron James. LeBron James has been knocked out of the first round the last 4 times in 5 years. The longest, deepest run that LeBron James has had is to go to the conference finals and lose to Denver before Denver went on to win the championship. Other than that, it has been either miss the playoffs or get knocked out of the first round. Now, that is not something you can hang over Michael Jordan's head anymore. Michael has less first-round exits. Michael has less second-round exits. Michael has less conference championship exits and NBA final exits. Okay? No more can you say that longevity is legitimately a fair argument versus Michael Jordan in the GOAT conversation. But I also brought up, and I'll end this on this point before we talk about Boston, is if he plays a quarter century, if he becomes the first player to play 25 years in the NBA, that is something I got to give to LeBron James credit for. 25 years at one job, man, that's a long time, okay? I grew up from a generation that did that. I grew up from a generation you spent 30, 40 years at one job, and that was the only job you had. Nowadays, man, we jump around from job to job to job. We're not at every place for so long. We're at every place just for a short time to learn everything, to then go do it somewhere else, okay? So LeBron James sticking to that old notion narrative of you got to stick at one job for the rest of your life and work at it and work at it and work at it, I tip my cap to him. All right, if he does that, man, that's going to be impressive. But let's see if he actually does it. To play 25 years in the NBA, that's not a fair point to bring up in the GOAT conversation versus Michael Jordan. But still, to me, accolades matters more than longevity. All right, let's talk about the Boston Celtics here, okay? I catch my breath. The Boston Celtics are making moves this summer. And no, it is not by addition. It is by subtraction, okay? They trade Kristaps Porzingis to Atlanta. They trade Jrue Holiday back to Portland. They let Al Horford retire this offseason. Now they have another situation with all of that, which is Jaylen Brown is the only star left on their team from their championship team about a year ago. Okay, Jason Tatum is going to be out with the Achilles injury. Jaylen Brown is going to have to go into battle for the first time by himself. He will not have enough legitimate superstars around him to compete for a title. It says right off the bat, Boston is in a retool era, not a rebuild. I don't believe they're going to tank. I don't believe they're going to go back to convincing Brooklyn and Sacramento to give up their draft picks and help Boston speed up their rebuild as they did through 2014 to 2016 before they started their playoff runs back in 2017. You got to think about that. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have been competed in the playoffs since the 2017-2018 playoffs. They have been doing this for so. I think that's smart for Boston, okay? Because they were on such a run. They were on such a run last season. They ran into Dallas. They were better than Dallas. They were taller than Dallas. They were more efficient than Dallas. Okay, think about it also. They went from Ime Udoka, who got himself in trouble in Boston. He gets fired, and they pull in their assistant and is like not skipping a beat. They just went right as it was right to work, okay? Unlike Denver. Obviously, Denver fired their coach, brought in a new assistant, thought that was going to fix it. They tried to do exactly what Boston did, but it didn't work right away. Maybe it works next year. Maybe that assistant gets them over the hump. Who knows? They lost a Game 7 by 35. I'd like to see if they can actually put up a fight. Zach, am I crazy for thinking that this is the right move for Boston? Like, a break after doing nearly 8 years of playoff runs? For Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, that's tiring, man.
Yeah, it can be tiring, and obviously Jason Tatum tearing his Achilles during the playoffs in the second round against the Knicks. Obviously a big loss, and a torn Achilles can be pretty altering. And, 3 Achilles tears in the playoffs with Damian Lillard, Tyrese Halliburton, and now Jason Tatum. I don't know what the Celtics are going to do. I mean, there's been talks that they might shop Jaylen Brown around. Utah has been pretty interested in Jaylen Brown. We kind of mentioned this last week on the Sean O'Connell show, is that Jaylen Brown could possibly be moved from the Boston Celtics. And obviously, Jaylen Brown's kind of in win now mode, even though they just won a championship last year. But it might be a good thing for the Celtics to kind of just sit where they are, let Tatum get back healthy, maybe by April if they do make the playoffs, and if not, then for the next season. Not this upcoming season, next season.
I like what you said there. They may trade Jaylen Brown, and Jaylen Brown to Utah would be very interesting. But that would also bring up the point of how much does Utah have to give up? Maybe they give up Ace Bailey. Maybe there's the little sneaky way Ace Bailey gets out of Utah. Maybe, just maybe, the idea of giving Jaylen Brown an idea of going to Utah, rebuilding with this team, gets Ace over to Boston so he can be on his East Coast side, so he can be with his family, as he's worrying about all of that in his head. But back to Boston, I think the move of giving this team a little bit of a breather, rebuilding the team, retooling the team. So we got to anyway, Boston is a destination, I think. Boston is a team that I think is going to leave the Eastern Conference wide open. It is going to be a dogfight to see what happens next year. But is this good for them? I think so. I think Jaylen Brown shouldn't be moved. He's the second legit star in Boston. He has helped them win a championship. Yeah, the notion that he couldn't take over a team. Let's see if he can. This is his opportunity. This is the best opportunity he's going to get. And I don't see why he can't run with this. I can't see why they can't take a season, win 35 games, take a breather, get a decent pick, and start building the team back up. Because Jason Tatum will be back. I guarantee you Jason Tatum will play in April. This notion that he's not going to play, that he's going to sit out a whole entire season because of the Achilles, I already know Jason Tatum's putting in work in the gym. He will be back. He will be back in April. They'll compete, win 10, 12 games towards the end of the season, and then everything will be back on track for Boston. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what ESPN did. They put together a quarter-century team of the best players that played from 2000 to 2025, and they told you, hey, these are the guys that you would put together on a 53-man roster. We're going to take a break here on the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell on ESPN 792.1 FM. On the other side, again, we'll talk about ESPN and their quarter-century team on the offensive side. Did they get it right? And who are some honorable mentions that deserve to be on the list? All that and much more on ESPN 792.1 FM. Oh, yeah. Little can't stop. Little bring us back on the down and dirty with Scott Mitchell. As you're hearing me, you're going, wait a minute, that's not Scott Mitchell. I'm Martin Kelly, his producer, filling in for him for one day here on ESPN 792.1 FM. If you haven't catch what we've talked about today, you can catch all of this and much more on the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell, wherever you get your podcast. Listen to it. You can also find it on ESPN Sports, ESPN700sports.com. We post it every day to our website there.
And some breaking news this morning kind of shook. And some breaking news this morning kind of shook us all a little bit. Just like, all right, we gotta talk about this. We gotta talk about this. Obviously, we have talked about it a little bit, but some breaking news that happened this morning. And then right as I'm pulling in, he's like, "You're like Jalen Ramsey just got traded, and Mika Fitzpatrick's going back to Miami." I'm like, "What?"
Yep.
Because when I'm driving, my phone goes into do not disturb while I'm driving. It's this Snapple thing. And then I look. He's like, "Did you see this?" I'm like, "No." And then you told me, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Right? Like, what? Like, if you didn't catch it, we talked about it earlier on the show. Minka Fitzpatrick from Pittsburgh goes back to Miami. Jono Smith, the tight end, and Jalen Ramsey are traded to Pittsburgh to be added to the veteran team already of what Pittsburgh has with Aaron Rodgers, with DK Metcalf. I said it on another segment we did on this show a couple weeks ago. To me, Zach, I still don't think that's a 10-win team or 11-win team. Yeah, Jalen is talented. Jono Smith is a nice tight end. He'll add a little, passing depth, catching depth. But even with Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf, who is just fast and speedy, I still don't see past 8 wins. 8-9 wins, bare minimum. I think this veteran team is great. Mike Tomlin knows how to run a solid veteran team, but that's still not enough to me to get past A, Baltimore, and B, Cincinnati, who I still believe are the top 2 teams in the AFC North.
Yeah, I mean, just because you signed Aaron Rodgers to a 1-year deal, who is going to be done next year, most likely is what he said on the Pat McAfee show this last week. I still don't see them going past nine wins. I mean, I think they still make the playoffs, somehow in some way, but you got to compete with Baltimore and Cincinnati. And maybe even Cleveland, depending what's going on in Cleveland.
Yep.
I would say Cincinnati is like one of those top teams. You know, you got 2 best receivers signed on new deals, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow having that underdog mentality, wanting to get back to the Super Bowl when they lost to the Rams in 2022. I think you're in the right spot if you're Pittsburgh, but you don't have a solid number 1 quarterback that's going to be your quarterback for the next however long you want to be that quarterback. You know, Aaron Rodgers is just kind of a hand-me-down, a rental for the Steelers. Like, I've no disrespect to Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had a great career with the Packers, played for the Jets, and now he's playing for the Steelers for 1 year. But, yeah, if I'm Pittsburgh, you got to find your quarterback. You got to find your franchise quarterback. And obviously not Kenny Pickett, not Justin Fields, even though Justin Fields did play pretty good under Mike Tomlin's system.
Yes, he did. 6 wins.
But you have to figure out your franchise quarterback first of all.
I 100% agree. Let's touch on this real quick. ESPN 700 is pleased to welcome Maroon 5 to the Delta Center October 25th. Tickets are already on sale. If you want more information, please visit ESPN700sports.com. Check out the Down and Dirty of Scott Mitchell while you're at ESPN700sports.com. I'm telling you, we guys post it every day. We tell you what's going on the show, and we give you all the details as much as we can. Let's talk about this. The ESPN came up with a quarter-century list of the top players from 2000 to 2025 and put them on a 53-man roster. Now, you're thinking to yourself, man, they must have some of the best names that play from 2000 to 2025. Who are the guys that were sneaky good in 2008, 2012, 2005, 2004, 2003, 2013, 14, 15, 16, 10? I already said 10. But my point to that is, who are the very best players? Let's start with the quarterbacks. All right, here's their top 3 quarterbacks. Number 1, Tom Brady. You're not going to get an argument out of there. 7-time Super Bowl champion with 2 different teams. Can't argue that one. Peyton Manning, another one. 2 Super Bowl rings with 2 different teams, had the most passing yards, had the most passing touchdowns, had them all before a certain player broke those records. And then, obviously, the golden boy of now, Patrick Mahomes. That rounds out your top 3 when it comes to quarterbacks. Now, here is their running back list. Number 1 is Priest Holmes. Number 2 is Christian McCaffrey. And number 3 is Derrick Henry. I will argue that a little bit in a minute. Their tight ends and their fullbacks, they went Kyle Juszczyk. Again, you can argue for another guy there. Wide receivers, I don't think there's too many arguments on this side of the list. Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, Terrell Owens, Marvin Harrison, but there's a name we can argue, Justin Jefferson. I'll get to that. Tight ends, Rob Gronkowski, Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez. Their left tackles, Joe Thomas, Trent Williams. Their left guards, Alan Francea, Steve Hutchinson. Their centers, Jason Kelsey. Their right guards, Zach Martin, Marshall Yanda. Their right tackles, Lane Johnson and Willie Anderson. That rounds out the offensive side of the ball for the quarter century team. Now, let's argue these running backs. I know everyone's going to go, wait, you can't argue those 3 running backs? Yes, I can. Listen, I get it from this list perspective that adding the players from the quarter century means if they played in 2016 or 2017, that means they are viable and eligible for this list. But I say, wait a minute, how come we're not giving respect to the guys that played in 2005 or 2006 or 2004 or 2003 or 2002 or 2007 or 2008? Here are some honorable mentions that I believe that should be on the list, Zach. All right, let's start with quarterbacks. Number 1 is Big Ben Roethlisberger, okay? 2004 led the 14-2 Pittsburgh Steelers to the AFC title game before they lost to the New England Patriots as a rookie. The most wins by a rookie ever in NFL history. That's number 1. 2 Super Bowl rings to go along with that, 2005 and 2008. That is just simply impressive to start off your career. Obviously, you went to the 2010 Super Bowl, lost to the Packers, but 3 Super Bowls in 10 years playing in the NFL, that is impressive. I don't care how you want to put it. Big Ben Roethlisberger was one of the best quarterbacks in the quarter century. Number 2 on that list, it hurts me to say this name, but Aaron Rodgers, a Super Bowl 4-time MVP, put up some of the best numbers, defeated my beloved Chicago Bears, got 25 wins versus them. He flipped that whole entire series around. The Bears owned that series. They were 20 games above Green Bay in a series they dominated. Okay, from the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, the Chicago Bears dominated the Green Bay Packers until Aaron Rodgers came in and ruined all of that. I had a very fun childhood. So, anyway, that's number 2 on that list. Number 3, to me, is Drew Brees, all right? A Super Bowl championship with the New Orleans Aints, okay? I said Aints. They were the Aints of the football league, okay? They were nobodies, and they win a Super Bowl. They became Super Bowl champions with Drew Brees, who had a broken, destroyed shoulder, all right? And a mention that Zach brought up that I like because he did phenomenal things in the 2000s as well is Kurt Warner. All right, that's an honorable mention for this list as well. And if we're going to go down that route, we have to put in Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers did amazing things in San Diego. Again, it's not his fault. The San Diego curse has become something that no quarterback in that franchise can overcome, okay, as they're now the LA Chargers. But Dan Fouts couldn't overcome it. Phillip Rivers couldn't overcome it. And unfortunately, we're watching Justin Herbert try to overcome that as well. And he's not on the right path either with that one.
Yeah.
Either. But that is my quarterback.
I got one more quarterback. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You can't forget about Alex Smith. Our guy, Alex Smith, who played here in the University of Utah.
I agree with that as well. Alex Smith in the 2000s was a really good one too. All right, let's move on to the running backs. We're running through this list here. All right, they have Priest Holmes, they have Christian McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry. All right, and already people are going to go, no way you can argue those guys. No, yes I can. Jamal Lewis should be on that list. LaDainian Tomlinson should be on that list. Edgerrin James should be mentioned. Matt Forte, Frank Gore, and LaShawn McCoy. Some of the guys that made the 2000s fun. Okay, those are some of the names that I think should be on that list. Wide receiver, you're not going to get an argument out of me. Randy should be on that list. Calvin should be on that list. Julio should be on that list. Terrell Owens should be on that list. Marvin Harrison. But Justin Jefferson has not played enough or long enough in the 2000s to be part of this quarter century list. Brandon Marshall should be mentioned. Hines Ward should be mentioned. Torrey Holt should be mentioned. Isaac Bruce should be mentioned. Anquan Bolden should be mentioned. All right. Some of those guys made the 2000s. They were the guys of the 2000s. They were the guys that were playing so long and so awesome. Those guys should be mentioned on that list. Okay. Let's go to another spot on this list. Tight ends. I'm going to argue that one as well. Greg Olsen was a fun tight end to watch. Jeremy Shockey, a 2-time Super Bowl champion. You had Antonio Gates. You had Kyle Rudolph. Like, these guys were the guys of the 2010s and in the 2008. They were just the guys. So let's mention that one. All right. Let's also go to center, and let's also go to left tackle. Left tackle on this list, Jason Peters. All right. Does not get enough love. He played in Buffalo. He played in Philly. He played in Chicago. He was awesome to watch. All right. Centers, Jeff Saturday. He was legitimately Peyton Manning's right-hand man the entire time they were playing. And 2, Marquise Pouncey. Played in Pittsburgh, won a Super Bowl. He competed in that 2010 Super Bowl loss. He's a guy that should have been on that list too. I'll argue that one. And that's about it. That's all I have on the names that I think that should be mentioned on that list. All right. Yes, they got the list right because they put the biggest names on that list. But I think there should be some legitimately other honorable mentions. Zach, what do you think? Do you think some of the guys I mentioned are crazy or what?
No, not crazy at all. And I agree with you on Justin Jefferson. Like, he only played like 5 years in the league.
5.
Versus, like, you have people like Calvin Johnson. You got Isaac Bruce, Brandon Marshall, Hines Ward. You could even throw, like, Terrell Owens, maybe. Jerry Rice in that list if they played in the 2000s.
Santonio Holmes.
There's another one. Des Bryant. There's another one. That's I mean, like, this list is good, but, like, there's so much robbery with some of these names in this list. You know, and, like, you look at tight ends like Greg Olson, Jeremy Shockey, Antonio Gates, Kyle Rudolph. You know, they got most of the tight ends right. Kelsey should be in there, I think. He's played a good while in the league. But, yeah, I think it's a good, solid list, but I think there's some additions or subtractions that could be made in this list.
All right, we're going to talk about the defensive side of that list on the second half with the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell on the Fan. Catch that one. We'll tell you what we thought about that list as well. Let's hand it over to OC. The Sean O'Connell Show is coming up next. Thank you for everybody listening to me for one day. I am Martin Kelly. This has been the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell right here on ESPN 792.1 FM. On the other side of the break is the Sean O'Connell Show right here again on ESPN 792.1 FM.